We have a crazy Spurs trade update as today the Houston Rockets made it known that they would like to trade for Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns, and according to sportsbooks, the team second most likely to land him in a trade behind the Houston Rockets, a close second, is the San Antonio Spurs. This could be a perfect fit alongside Victor Wembanyama, though there are a lot of caveats and a lot of other things to discuss about a Devin Booker to San Antonio trade. We got to dive into the reports, Devin Booker stats, the Spurs situation, and a lot more coming up on this episode of Spurs Digest, so stick around. But guys, before we get into the video, just real quick, if you haven't hit subscribe, that's 3/4 of you. Hit the button now. We're on the road to 4,000. We're getting so close every single day. And if you guys want daily Spurs content, rumors, trade reports, pre-games, post-games, all the best stuff, you want to stay up to date on your Spurs, hit the subscribe button down below. It's completely free. It'll help you out. You won't regret it. I promise. Let's dive into this. We got to talk about Devin Booker right now. So today the Houston Rockets came out and they basically said, hey, we want to make it known that we're fans of Devin Booker, and we have a lot of the Suns' draft capital that we can move back to them. So naturally, these gears start getting put into motion. And the first thing I do want to bring up here, we do have this report. This is via Real GM here. And, you can see they have a lot of Suns' draft capital. They've let it be known they were Devin Booker fans. But in the end, Brian Windhorst did say Devin Booker is staying with the Suns. I don't see any wavering on that whatsoever, just to interject. But the Suns have been making some moves, right? And they made a move just today, actually shipping out Josh Okogie and 3 second-round picks in exchange for Nick Richards from Charlotte. Nick Richards has not been having a very good season, and they got him and a second-round pick to boot, but kind of a strange move. The interesting thing there is Josh Okogie is the second longest tenured Sun on the entire roster, behind only Devin Booker. And look, there's no secret that the Suns are in a really bad cap situation moving forward. Beal is now injured again, and I don't know how long he'll be out, probably not long. But then like Booker, Durant, Beal, the team's not winning as much as they want. Eventually a shakeup's going to happen. And the thing is, the future is in the Phoenix Suns' hands. It's in Devin Booker's hands, really. And he's probably going to still be in Phoenix. But hey, you never know. Things can change very fast. We've seen this time and time again with teams in these long-term, really bad cap situations. And according to Bovada official and NBA Central's tweet today, behind the Houston Rockets, the Spurs are a close second. The Warriors are a distant third in terms of teams ready to land Devin Booker. And this kind of caught me off guard. And I was like, well, look, I mean, I don't know if the Spurs have been in conversations with the Suns. I certainly haven't heard it. I don't know if that's out there. However, it makes a lot of sense when you look at what the Suns don't have and what the Spurs do have in terms of trade capital. So first of all, do I think this is going to happen? No, I don't think this is going to happen, at least not yet. There's no indication that Devin Booker is going to get shipped off, but I love thinking about this because this is the kind of move that the Spurs will likely eventually make because of the sheer amount of draft capital that they have. And I want to dive into something. Actually, we'll get into the roster in a bit. I want to just show you, after today's trade, the draft or the trade assets that the Phoenix Suns still have. Trade assets remaining in Phoenix from Bobby Marks. This is after the trade today, of course, the Nick Richards, Josh Okogie, or was that today? Yeah, it was today. And they now have a 2025 Denver second and a 2031 Phoenix first. Those are the trade assets remaining in Phoenix. They have basically nothing. Do you want to see what the San Antonio Spurs have? The Spurs, this is just from, I'm going to make that bigger for you guys so you can see. This is just from 2025 to 2028. The Spurs also have extra first-round picks in 2029, and this isn't even including second-round picks. Now, again, not all of these are going to convey as first. Some of them might convert into second. Some of them, might be protected, right? There's a bunch of things. Regardless, though, look at the sheer amount of assets the Spurs have in terms of draft capital. And then you pile on top of that the roster space they have. They have some big contracts that can make a big money move work, and even some young guys that could be very valuable to the Phoenix Suns. Now, again, if you're the Suns and you're trading Devin Booker, if this is something that's real and that's happening, you're probably looking at the Spurs and you're starting with a guy like Stephon Castle, right? And a bunch of draft picks. It's hard to say that I wouldn't trade Stephon Castle for Devin Booker. I think Stephon Castle, especially at the lower contract he'll be on, is probably going to be more valuable long-term to the San Antonio Spurs. But it all depends on the mindset of Brian Wright, RC Buford, the front office, Gregg Popovich, whoever's involved in this trade, whether they're ready to kind of go, I guess, all in a trade like this. Right now, Booker, he's making a lot of money. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but the dude right now has been playing unbelievably as of late. Yes, he's had some cold spills this season. There's no doubt about that with Devin Booker, and he's prone to it, but the dude he's a prolific scorer. He can even handle the ball and pass the ball a bit. He's not a superstar defender, but he doesn't need to be. His play style actually fits extremely well alongside Victor Wembanyama. Let's put our bias against the Suns away for a second. And just let's get this trade idea out of our mind, and let's just picture Devin Booker alongside Victor Wembanyama. Devin Booker averaging 25 points a game, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, shooting 44 from the field, 35 from 3. Percentages, not great. I absolutely admit that. And, a lot of his shots are assisted, but he doesn't have to be that primary, driving ISO scorer. It'd be nice to have that on the perimeter. But with Wemby, right, he can play a little more off ball. It also depends who the Spurs are going to be running at point guard. All's that to say is that I believe he actually is a good fit alongside Victor Wembanyama. When it comes to a trade, though, I find it makes sense. Here's the thing. I find it makes sense when you look at what the Suns have, which is nothing, and what the Spurs have, which is pretty much everything under the sun, and also that the Spurs have already started to turn that corner into a fringe playoff team this season. They look like they could very well be a playoff team, at the very least a play-in team this year. The Suns are starting to dwindle, the Spurs are starting to climb up, yet the Spurs have way more assets than the Suns do. So if you're the Suns and you're deciding to finally blow things up, and you look at Devin Booker and you're like, look, he's going to be the Suns' all-time leading scorer. He's only like 300 or 400 points away from that right now. That's the thing. He is an all-time Sun. He's going to go down as one of the greatest Phoenix Suns of all time. So how do you trade a guy like that? At some point, those cutthroat decisions do have to be made. Unless Booker's saying, I want to spend my whole career here. They still have Kevin Durant. They still have Bradley Beal. This team is probably not going to be able to blow it up for a little while, and I don't see Booker being that first domino to fall, right? I see them moving out a guy like Beal for I don't want to say scraps first, but that might be what has to happen before a guy like Booker gets moved. But again, if they're deciding to take that turn and they're deciding to move him, what better team than the Spurs? Again, they have some young guys that they can entice the Phoenix Suns with, but the biggest thing is replenishing that draft capital. Now, it makes sense that the Houston Rockets are right at the top of this list. They can just give Phoenix back a lot of their assets, and the Rockets are already kind of sitting pretty right now. They're playing some great basketball. They have a really, really solid team. Honestly, I think the Rockets surprised me more than some other people. I wasn't sold on them even after last year, but hey, they're kind of proving me wrong. So they could very well go for this. But I think the Spurs, ultimately, with the roster they have, the roster construction, they're well positioned for something like this. Look, Booker could go to a lot of places. He could very likely go absolutely nowhere, as Brian Windhorst says. But when we're talking about this, the gears are moving, right? The Phoenix Suns are collapsing. We're seeing this as Spurs fans. We're seeing this as NBA fans. What they have is not ideal. Bradley Beal is probably going to be gone at some point, though he has his no trade clause, which very few people, I think it's just him and LeBron even have one in the league. So whether he moves is a question mark. The guy that you're going to get the most value back for is a Devin Booker, and it comes down to how cutthroat you are as management. Like Matt Ishbia, the new owner, I don't know if that's kind of his game. The old ownership under Sarver, who knows? But Devin Booker right now, do you trade him? Do you get a bunch of assets back, and do you just try and say, you know what, this was a failure, we're rebooting now? Or do you try and push through with the core they have? I'm saying the core they have is still very talented, but they're trying to just pick up the scraps at the end of the bench, and they don't have much money to do much with the rest of the roster. It's a very interesting situation, but I want to hear what you guys have to say about Devin Booker being second on the list in terms of odds to go to the San Antonio Spurs of all teams. Again, I'm not saying this is going to happen. In fact, I really don't think it will. But regardless, the idea of the Spurs being implicated in a trade like this is really exciting to me. The idea that the Spurs are finally one of these destinations that's ready to trade for a big name player. I love it. But let me know your guys' thoughts down below, because that'll do it for this episode of Spurs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like down below. Even if you didn't enjoy, leave a dislike. That's okay. Engagement, let us know, right? I love talking about these crazy trade ideas. As you guys know, who've watched the channel a lot, I love this stuff. Even if I think it's unlikely, I just love discussing with you guys, because you guys always leave the best comments and intriguing stuff. Even if you call me out, I'm cool with that. This is a spot for fun. This is a spot to leave your thoughts, comments, everything like that. Oh man, is it ever fun to be doing these videos. I've been your host, Josh Gosse. I hope to catch you all in the next one.